Welcome to the Fantasy Fangirls Podcast, where two sisters dive deep into beloved fantasy lore, characters, themes, theories, and more.
I'm Lexi.
And I'm Nicole.
And today we continue celebrating Winter Solstice with our second and final episode of A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, where we're covering chapters 15 through 28. If you're watching right now, you can see that we're wearing our holiday sweaters.
I have a surfing Santa.
This is and I have my reindeer. Getting in the holiday spirit here in October. All right. As always, let's start with our content warnings. While we're focusing today's discussion on the second half of Frost and Starlight, this episode definitely includes spoilers for the entire ACOFAS series, including Silver Flames, the next book. These deep dives do not, however, have spoilers for the rest of Sarah J. Maas' series, except at the end of every episode, where we include our Maasverse Madness segment. We'll give a big spoiler warning ahead of time, so you can leave the episode if you have not read the Maasverse, or you can keep listening for Throne of Glass and /or Crescent City callouts.
So with all of that said, if you don't know what happens to Nesta's Winter Solstice present from Cassian, then go finish the series, cry, and then come back. We'll be here when you're done.
Next, we at Fantasy Fangirls are adults who say adult things about adult books. In other words, friends, this podcast is rated R.
Rhys and Feyre have unprotected sex against a wall, hard enough to make the pictures fall off. Rated R enough for you? But seriously, please be mindful of those little listening ears.
Additionally, we are so excited to see you at upcoming live events.
We are only a few weeks out from our Fantasy Fangirls first ever solo live show at Comedy Works South in Denver, Colorado on October 20th. The topic is going to be our biggest questions and predictions heading into Onyx Storm, especially at least at the time of us recording this. We just received the blurb for Onyx Storm. Oh boy, our questions are going like crazy. General admission tickets are still available. Link in the show notes.
We'll also be influencing our partners at the Swords and Shadows Masquerade by Mountains of Magic in Highlands Ranch, Colorado on November 23rd. There are only a few tickets left to go to that, so if you really want to go get your tickets right now.
You can also dance the night away with us at the Fantastique Collection New Year's Eve drop party in Denver, Colorado.
And we have so much in store as podcast partners at Romantasy BookCon in Los Angeles on February 20th through 22nd in 2025.
Links to all of these events and more information are in the show notes.
And lastly, if you love Fantasy Fangirls and have been loving this ACOFAS series journey we're on together, if you want more content, more community, more events, and just more all around, please check out our Patreon.
We have 3 tiers that you can join. First up, the Valkyries, which includes our book club that sometimes features authors with live Q&As. Like, for instance, our October book club with Teresa Weeks. We're talking all things The Witch Collector. I'm so excited. I love this series so much. We also have in this first tier the Bop and Discord live Q&As from Lexi and I, community events, promo codes for live events, plus a discounted 20% off link to the merch store. That is all for $5 a month. Or you can join the High Fae, which includes everything from the Valkyrie level, plus early access to ad-free episodes, our full episode outlines, and special voting privileges. That is for $10 a month. And of course, we have our newest and highly requested tier, the Inner Circle, which includes everything from the first 2 tiers, plus behind-the-scenes content. You also get a welcome gift, giveaways, private Discord channels, and your name shouted out on the podcast. That is $25 a month.
Join the party at patreon.com/fantasyfangirls. The link is, of course, also in the show notes. And really and truly, thank you so much for supporting us as we've turned this little podcast into our livelihood. It's all because of you. Let's start this episode with Nicole's recap of what happens in chapters 15 through 28 of Frost and Starlight. So gather around, friends. We need an Inner Circle debrief.
Chapter 15, Feyre. Needing to finish their winter solstice shopping, Elaine and Feyre hit the shops. Let's go to the mall, everybody! They go to the weaver's shop and meet the weaver herself. No, not Striga, who just died in the war, like an actual weaver. I know, it's confusing. Feyre learns that the weaver, not Striga's husband, died in the war, and despite being heartbroken, she continues to create because it's the only thing that keeps her going. This inspires Feyre, feeling so grateful for her husband's aliveness, to go to her new secret spot and paint. But whoops! Ricinia finds Feyre in the boarded up studio and continues being Valaris's #1 realtor and tells Feyre that she should buy this property. Feyre frantically leaves and runs into her mate, literally. She asks Reese about the possibility of others also wanting art therapy, and thus a new career path is born. Later, Feyre goes to Amren's apartment, and she's doing what many tiny ancient ones do, a jigsaw puzzle. Me too, Amren, me too. Feyre, living up to her Snoop title, asks Amren what does she know about Nesta, but Amren shuts that shit down. She is not going to gossip. Chapter 16, Reese. Showing Cassian and Asriel their new room for Solstice, Cassian remarks on how they are now at the bottom of the totem pole. Spoiler alert, this room has 2 tiny short twin beds, so I think Cassian is onto something. The crew talks about the Illyrian camp's unrest, and Reese and Asriel notably leave out information for Cassian. Later, during the Solstice Eve celebration, Reese likes Feyre's butt and he cannot lie, causing Amren to go, oh my God, get your mind out of the gutter. Chapter 17, Feyre. Happy birthday, Feyre! Reese gives her not 1, not 2, but 3 presents in bed, one of which is a sketchbook. Paint him like one of your French girls, Feyre, darling. At breakfast, Reese is kidnapped by Asriel and Cassian. Not at all bothered. Feyre does what I also do with a day off, and that is bury herself in work. But realizing that's not very festive, she goes to talk with Elaine. When there's a knock on the door, Nesta is here! Hooray! Oh, wait, it's Lucian. Dun, dun, dun. Chapter 18, Feyre. Lucian fills us in with what he's been up to, spending time with Jurian and Vassa in the human lands. Elaine, happily, leaves the room to go get some tea for the crew. But Lucian's already got the real tea, friends. Turns out that Tamlin dumped his stuff on his porch, and Lucian is not allowed back into the spring court. But he already found a new family with the Band of Exiles, the name of which Feyre mocks. Bad Feyre. Understandably angry, Lucian leaves. Feyre takes out her own anger on Elaine, who is notably relieved that her mate is gone. And Elaine admits the obvious that she doesn't want Lucian or a mate, despite how hard Feyre tries to get Elaine to make an effort. Moore arrives and seeing that her friend needs a laugh, takes Feyre to the cabin where, what's this? Let's get ready to rumble! There's 3 Illyrian warriors. They're having a yearly snowball showdown. Chapter 19, Feyre. Asriel wins this year, and the 3 Illyrian warriors go to take a steam, and Reese, totally in character, invites Feyre in for sex. Feyre goes in and is ravaged by 3 Illyrian warriors all at once. Oh wait, this is not Nesta's POV. Reese gets kicked out because he became a stiffy boy in the Birchen. Later on that night... Boing! Later on that night, the celebration commences, starting with Feyre's birthday cake, a recreation of the drawers that she painted back at their cottage. Everyone starts to open presents. There's holiday cheer and merriment. Mariah Carey is singing in the corner in whistle tone until there's a knock on the door. The 3rd Archeron sister has arrived. Chapter 20, Feyre. After some coaxing, Nesta comes inside, and the celebration continues. It's just much more tense now. Presents are exchanged, including Feyre giving Reese a painting of their new pet, at least according to Cassian. It's actually her in the Ouroboros mirror. Hours go by and Nesta decides to leave. And true to their sisterly agreement, Feyre gives Nesta 3 months' rent. And after a moment where it looked like Nesta wouldn't take it, she does, and she walks out. But storming after her is an over it Cassian. Chapter 21, Cassian. Enough is enough. Cassian tries to follow Nesta home and give her her solstice present, but she refuses and tells him to get out! The words from the end of the Hybern battle hanging over the two of them. They fight, get used to me saying this, and she leaves him in the cold. Angry with what's become of them, Cassian throws her present into the river. But angry or not, Cassian still follows her home, just in the shadows. Cut to our first Nesta POV. In her apartment, Nesta seals her many, many locks on her door and slumps to the ground, reflecting on the evening. But despite being paid to be there and hearing the logs snap, she feels nothing. Chapter 22, Feyre. Reese winnows the 2 lovebirds to the famous Chapter 54 cabin, where Reese reveals to her that the dresses he gifted Feyre are all made by his seamstress mother, designer mommy, if you will. Feyre admits that she wants Reese to change her tattoos on her hands from 2 cat eyes to the Night Court insignia, a mountain with 3 stars. Honestly, valid. But Feyre has one more gift to dish out, sharing that she would like to start a family with her mate. And unprotected bang, bang, bangity bang. I said hard enough to make the pictures on the wall fall off. Bang! That just sounds dangerous, but gifts aren't done. Reese gives her one more present, an old estate for them to build a home together. Brett, take notes. Chapter 23, Reese. After being destroyed by the sex the night before, Reese goes to visit Tamlin, who's just staring at a dead elk on the table. Mood. Reese skins the animal for his old friend turned enemy and tells him to eat. Tamlin asks the question we've been discussing at length for 31 episodes. Why am I such an idiot? JK. Will she ever forgive me? And though
Same thing. Same thing.
Yep. And though we still don't get an answer, Rhys offers up an olive branch in the form of steak. Chapter 24. Moore. In her estate she's owned secretly for 300 years, Moore is off riding her horse Elia. Insert Epona's song here. While on her joyride, Moore notices a shadow in the corner of the woods. Not wanting to cross paths with the spooky boogeyman, Moore rides home. Chapter 25. Feyre. Feyre goes...
Have you watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Just making sure. Chapter 25, Feyre. Feyre goes to realtor Ricinia and tells her, you know that old boarded up studio you've been trying to get me to buy? The owners just gave it to me. Damn it. Ricinia was going to get commission on it. But hey, Ricinia, Feyre's got a job offer for you. Want to open up an art therapy studio for children? Feyre's in her entrepreneurial era. Chapter 26, Rhys. The Illyrian girls are training. Literally, that's it. That's the chapter. Chapter 27, Feyre. A month of blood, sweat, and tears later, the art therapy studio is open. And like any new business owner, Feyre is nervous that no one will show up on day one. But in pour the children, ready to paint their feelings away. Chapter 28, Feyre. Rhys joins Feyre to walk her home for lunch on her first day of work. And he notices that she's covered in paint. That sounds familiar. But apparently it's nothing compared to Ricinia, who is coated from paint bubble boy. Feyre reflects on how much she loves her life, and she and Rhys fly home together. End of heartfelt novella. Bring it on, Silver Flames!
Don't mind our holiday sweaters here. As I say, the weather is moving into the fall season here in the real world. And right on cue, my skin starts breaking out with a change in the season. The truth of the matter is our skin changes over time, and it can be overwhelming to figure out the right products for it. That's why we're excited to partner with Apostrophe, the sponsor of this episode. Apostrophe's goal is to help you feel confident in your own skin. Whether you're dealing with breakouts, signs of aging, or acne scarring, Apostrophe will help you love the skin you're in.
Apostrophe is an online platform that connects you with an expert dermatology team to get customized acne treatment for your unique skin. Through Apostrophe, you can get access to oral and topical medications that use clinically proven ingredients to help clear acne. Simply fill out an online consultation about your skin goals, your medical history, then snap a few selfies, and your dermatology provider will create a customized treatment plan just for you. One of the things I love with Apostrophe is they don't give you like these super tiny, I almost like sample bottles. They give you bottles that last forever. Like I'm still using bottles from months ago, and they also gave me sunscreen. It is my favorite sunscreen on my face. I use it every single day. My skin is glowing right now. Look at it. I love it.
We have a special deal for our audience. Get your first visit for only $5 at apostrophe.com/FF when you use our code FF. That's a savings of $15. This code is only available to our listeners. To get started, just go to apostrophe.com/FF and click Get Started. Then use our code FF at sign up, and you'll get your first visit for only $5. Thank you, Apostrophe, for sponsoring this episode. It's time to step into the cauldron and discuss key insights, character analysis, lore, foreshadowing, theories, and so much more. While Feyre and Elaine are winter solstice shopping in Velaris, Feyre becomes captivated by a tapestry. It is woven from fabric so black it seems to devour the light, though the insignia is rendered in iridescent thread that reminds her of woven starlight. Drawn to it, Feyre asks the High Fae weaver working at her loom about this unusual fabric. And so begins one of the most impactful conversations she's had since returning from the war. The weaver, who we'll later learn is named Arinia, shares that it is a newer experiment of hers, which she began creating out of grief after her husband died during the Battle of Adriata, which confuses Feyre because Rhys deliberately did not ask anyone in Velaris to join his armies. I've already shared my feelings on this matter in the deep dive, so I'll just move past that here. Arinia explains that her husband thought it was the right thing to do to help fight, so he and several others who felt the same way went south where they joined up with a summer court legion they found on their way. Remember, however, that the Battle of Adriata was a surprise attack, which Varian secretly warned Amren about, leading the Inner Circle to immediately winnow their Illyrian legion to defend the summer court. I'm not sure how, A, any citizens of Velaris would have learned about this attack, especially in time for the attack, or B, how they arrived to the battle in time if they weren't winnowing, because if they were winnowing, it would have been hard to meet up with the Summer Court Legion. Yes, Nicole.
I do have an idea on this. So my thought is maybe after the attack on Velaris, they were like, oh, war is coming. And so they were like, let's go meet up with the Summer Court. So they traveled all the way down to the Summer Court, and then sadly died in the first battle. That wasn't even the first battle of the war because it was a surprise attack.
Maybe. However, there were several months in between.
Yes, that is true.
So, Cauldron boil me. Bottom line, this weaver's husband unfortunately died in the war. That's the main takeaway here.
I have one other main takeaway, and that is, I'm not going to lie, the use of the word weaver here, every time I read the scene, it throws me so much because we so often associate the word weaver with the weaver. Go figure, Striga. So all I see in this scene is the weaver from the cottage, just like up in Valaris, weaving blankets, and my brain cannot handle that, apparently. This is more just, a note for SJM, or maybe this is just a note for my brain to be able to actually associate two different things with one word. The weaver has created something she, in her grief, calls void, like Lexi was talking about. It's this unusual black fabric that has the sole intention of seeing how dark might be able to be made tangible, and it appears to absorb all the light in the room. As Reese noted in ACOFAS, there are multiple different kinds of darkness. The darkness that frightens, soothes, is restful, and peaceful. Back then, Feyre was learning how to find herself in the surrounding darkness, finding the light at the end of the tunnel, and finding the peace while she was in the darkness. Yet this is a different kind of dark. I love how it's described as like this unending pit of hell, except for that one iridescent silver thread that cuts through the tapestry, which the weaver calls hope. Feyre, feeling the weight of her own void from the trauma after the war, has only one question, quote, "How do you keep creating despite what you lost?" Feyre has barely been able to sit down on a stool and paint because she's afraid of what might come out after all of that feeling of lost and what she almost lost, quite literally. And as a result, she's been feeling like there's something missing within her, and instead she's been burying herself in work. Feyre, quite frankly, has a pattern of this. In her own pockets of darkness, her outlet of hope, painting, definitely goes to the back burner until some bigger epiphany, I'll say. Right before chapter 54 in the cabin, last book, is a great example. Here is another good example for after the war trauma. So the weaver says these simple, I have to, meaning I have to keep creating. She has to create or it'll all be for nothing, or she will crumple up with despair and never leave her bed. The weaver says, quote, "I have to create because I have no other way of voicing this." And if she were to stop creating, there would be no silver thread of hope in the void. Later, Feyre will hang this tapestry in her and Racinia's art therapy studio, which is what I'm going to call it for the rest of the episode, as a reminder for them of what their mission is. It is creating is sometimes the best spark of hope in a void. And with what the weaver says, it is the only way to sometimes voice that trauma. This moment is such a huge perspective shift for Feyre. For one reason, realizing how incredibly lucky she is to be worried about buying her mate presents, because she still has a mate to buy presents for.
Feyre may already hold on to Reese extra tight because she knows how close she was to losing him, and the temporary void of their bond will haunt her forever. But it is a new sort of reality check and sense of appreciation when she is face to face with someone who wasn't as lucky as her. Her mate miraculously came back to life, and now she gets the opportunity, like Nicole was saying, to shop for him, continue living life with him, when unfortunately that wasn't the case for so many others who lost their beloveds on the battlefield.
The second thing Feyre realizes is how she and her family get to be together when they were so close to not getting this happy ending. They get to celebrate Solstice together. They get to drink and decorate together. That was almost taken away from them with milliseconds to spare.
Exactly. Feyre has been grateful for this family and time together before this conversation, of course, with the Weaver, but they've also thrown themselves into the day-to-day work and more or less kept having to push forward and simply live their own lives. As she heads into the Winter Solstice, she now has a renewed sense of gratitude that they are so lucky to all still be together. When back at the height of war, they truly did not believe they would all survive. Remember with Cassie and Anesta, everybody, like that was a suicide mission right there. And everybody thought that they were going to die, including Reese, saying, no, we're not going to see them again. Most of them almost did die or actually die, like Reese and Amren, but they get another chance to be together as a family.
And the third thing Feyre realizes is how important painting is for her own healing. So inspired, Feyre runs to the boarded up studio that used to belong to Paulina, and she paints and paints for hours. And I just want to say, like, as someone who does have a huge outlet in creativity, like for instance, especially when I was like deep in musical theater, there were times when I was so stressed out or I was feeling such a heavy weight of the world and I didn't know how to voice those feelings like in the slightest. So instead, I would go to a practice room at my college and I would lock the door and I would just sing my heart out. And that was a way for me to process those feelings. Even though it wasn't voicing out exactly what the feelings were, I was able to sing them through song. And I feel like that's so similar here with Feyre. And it's just like, I feel like all the creatives read this and they're like, yep, I feel that. I know exactly what that feels like.
Not only does this conversation with the Weaver and the tapestry that she created remind Feyre how close she was to the same fate of unimaginable loss, it also creates a shift in perspective about having children, and that there isn't always a lifetime to wait for the right time. The Weaver says that in the 300 years she was with her husband, they never had the chance to have children. Quote, I don't even have a piece of him in that way. He's gone and I am not. Feyre can't stop thinking that this outcome was very nearly hers and Rhys's, and how lucky they are to have a future together while the Weaver doesn't get one with her husband. All of the what ifs are quite literally staring her in the face right now. Quote, the impossible depth of blackness before me, the unlikely defiance of hope shining through it, whispered the truth before I knew it, before I knew what I wanted to give Rhys. It won't be until she makes a wish for her birthday that Feyre truly realizes what her wish is, to have children. But here in this moment, she has a lasting change of mind. And look, I get that Feyre was adamant about wanting to live a full and long life with Rhys before having children. She's only almost 21. She has said that she isn't ready for children as much as she does want them in the future. But if the war has taught them anything, it's that there isn't always a future. The reality of that settled in for her during this conversation. And Feyre is beginning to realize just how much she wants children with her mate and that she actually is ready, because they might not have tomorrow. And the fact that they do when so many others don't means that she doesn't want to wait around for something that they already both know they want. The war and everything they have endured and almost lost caused a perspective change. And I will die on the hill defending her that she is allowed to change her mind and that her new perspective of wanting children now is within character. Bottom line, we're allowed to change our minds about what we want now versus later, especially when later is almost ripped away and she would have been left with all-consuming regrets. As she'll think by the end of chapter 15, quote, I knew which ones would have hit the hardest, struck the deepest, knew which ones were in my power to change. So moved by the story behind this tapestry void and the unlikely defiance of hope shining through it, Feyre buys it. Later, she'll hang it up in her art studio to remind them all to create through the grief. As the Weaver says, quote, I have to create because I have no other way of voicing this. If any of these artists are to stop and give up, let the grief consume them, then there would be no hope shining through the void.
It was beautiful. That was so beautiful. Wow.
This is a heavy topic for this holiday.
Yeah, let's switch topics.
Well, as Feyre leaves Polina's studio after a motivated session following her conversation with the Weaver, her own dream is beginning to take shape. She nervously asks Rhys if he thinks it's stupid to wonder if painting might help others who have experienced trauma too. It's such a real question because she has struggled with her conflicting feelings about painting helping her. But there's so many others who need, I'll call it physical help, that she feels guilty for painting. And when I say physical help, I mean, like enough clothes or rebuilding efforts for their homes, things along those lines versus their inner demons that she's personally having to deal with through painting. But after her first time back painting, she embraced how healing it was for her. And especially after her conversation with the Weaver, she recognizes that creating alongside grief can keep oneself held together to find any hope for the future. It's not just about the physical help. So many people, young and old, also need an outlet for their emotional trauma. And they might not already have a craft to fall back on, like she and the Weaver with their respective artistry. Ever the supportive mate, Rhys assures her that this idea isn't stupid at all. And the only way to find out if others want to join in such an opportunity is to take the leap.
This is so freaking relatable.
Yes.
And Lexi, I know you and I both have felt this deeply when we started Fantasy Fangirls. Yes, it was a hobby. And there was a part of our brains that was like, would anyone actually want to listen to this? This was why we had the goal of like 20 downloads in the first week. And we were thinking, like, would this also be helpful for other people? Do other people get lost in these deep dives just like we do? And much like Feyre will later, we got slapped in the face with the reality check of, yes, there are other people who have this feeling and need to escape through analysis and theories and all of these joyful things. And I do view this as a kind of creating as well. At the beginning of Frost and Starlight, Feyre was thinking about all of her work, from the paperwork to the volunteering. And she says, quote, all of it was vital. All of it was good, satisfying work. And yet, there was more that I could do to help. Personally, I just hadn't figured it out yet. By George, I think she's got it. I love this light bulb moment and how it happens after a super healing painting sessions for Feyre. Feyre feels the most like her when she has a goal to work towards. We've discussed this. We haven't actually discussed this in a long time because it was really on the back burner in our ACOFAS deep dives.
They had a goal. Yeah.
They had a goal and boy, they went after it with all abandon. But these goals have always been something that she needed for survival of her family or, you know, the state of the world. This is now a goal for her passion, helping others. And I just like, I'm just so happy for her. And she second guesses it because it's not a survival goal, because it is an extra goal. But extra goals are good, Feyre. On Feyre's birthday, she will look at the courtly budget and double check to make sure that the money is there. And I view this almost like that the money is real. I like this note that she's looking in the category of miscellaneous purchases. Again, it just goes back to that. She views this as lavish or extra. But she realizes after deciding to have children with Rhys that, quote, putting off didn't make a lick of sense. I knew what I wanted. There was no reason to delay. And it turns out the money wasn't actually needed. Despite practically trying to force Paulina's family to take the money from her, they refuse and instead gift the property to Feyre, which makes Feyre quite uncomfortable because she likes to earn things. But she decides to give this kindness and generosity right back into the community. Remember back in ACOWAR where the Suriel says, quote, Feyre Archeron, a request. Leave this world a better place than how you found it. While it might be in the moment talking about war and winning, there's so much more that Feyre can do for the betterment of the world in smaller ways too. So Feyre in that moment turned to Ricinia and said, want to go into business together? But more on Feyre's entrepreneur side in a moment. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. As someone who is socially anxious, I spent a lot of my life feeling like I need to wear this like social extrovert mask in front of others. And while October is the season for wearing masks and costumes, some of us feel like we need to wear a mask and hide more often than we want to, whether it's at work, in social settings, or around our family at the Winter Solstice. Therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself so you can take off the mask, because masks should be worn for Halloween fun, not for our emotions.
Therapy for me has helped me navigate my daily overload and feeling like I am being pulled in every different direction, or like there's too many tabs open in my brain. I'm able to talk through all of these emotions and struggles to not just get it off my chest, which is really important, but also to then be able to figure out solutions to stay present and prioritize, and also, most of all, give myself grace.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/FFG today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/FFG. Happy birthday to you. Huzzah! Happy birthday to you. Huzzah! Happy birthday, dear Feyre. Happy birthday to you. Huzzah!
Happy birthday, Feyre!
Like most of us on our 21st birthday, our girl wakes up with a hangover. I had been living in South America for 6 months already when I turned 21. So not going to lie, it was a little anticlimactic because it was already legal to drink. But I did take a flaming shot, so that was fun.
I will say I had a climactic enough for both of us 21st birthday, so that's okay.
Like we mentioned last episode, Feyre does not like being in the spotlight for these kind of celebrations. She even hoped her mate would forget, which... That's so silly, Feyre, darling. Last year in the spring court, she never told anyone that it was her birthday. So to her relief, her birthday passed with no one noticing, which, yeah, Tamlin seems to never have asked her when her birthday was. Like, he did not know when her birthday was. He did not celebrate it or anything like that because she did not tell him. Rhys did ask her when her birthday was way before they were together, which absolutely tracks for him. Of course, Rhys would want to know that. And then he was flabbergasted when he found out that her birthday is on the longest night of the year, further cementing that they were meant to be together all along. This is their first year celebrating her birthday, and being the gold star book boyfriend that he is, Rhys ensures it's perfect for her.
Like we discussed last episode around Feyre's money mindset, gifts feel unnecessary and extravagant, and Feyre typically prefers very practical things, or preferably that they forget altogether to even get her anything. But much like the paint that Elaine got Feyre when they were living in poverty, the presents that Rhys get her are unnecessary to survival, but they enhance her life.
Yes, it's like these gifts might not be extravagant, like for instance, Amren's jewels, but they're so meaningful for Feyre.
Rhys gets her a leather-bound sketchbook with her initials on the front, a blue wool scarf so she can stop stealing Moore's red one, and a new satchel for her painting supplies, so she doesn't have to throw things in her pocket realm / remove a requirement anymore like she does with that stretched with Rosinia. So love that for her. If I was a Daemati, this would be so helpful around the holiday season. I would just peek into your mind just a little bit and just be like, what do they really want? What is a super that would be so out of the blue that they would never get for themselves, but that is what I would use that power for. Watch out, Lexi.
Apparently, all right. And so her birthday begins with a perfect lazy morning in bed sketching her mate. After all, nude would be best.
On this topic, when Feyre draws Rhys like one of her French girls, he hums with approval, quote, regarding certain areas of his body. Rhys is basically saying, thank you, honey, for drawing my dick big enough.
All I can picture is the super bad dick drawing.
Wow. There's something I haven't thought about in this many years. That's crazy. Oh my God. Feyre's birthday continues with it mostly in solitude because Rhys gets stolen away by his brothers for what, as Tevye would say, it's tradition. So after spending time looking at paperwork and deciding that it wasn't really very festive, Feyre hangs out with Elaine and they hear a knock on the door. Elaine sprints towards the door believing that it's Nesta coming early for Winter Solstice. This just breaks my heart. These two sisters went into the Cauldron together at the same time and they could have been healing together, much like Feyre and Rhys, how they healed individually, but also together as a unit from under the mountain. You can almost hear Elaine wanting someone like that too. And if Nesta shows up, it's almost that sign of, hey, I want to be back in the family again. But alas, it is definitely not Nesta. It is Elaine's mate, Lucien. We kind of covered Lucien last episode, but let's get into the details about what he's been up to. Even though he has an apartment in Velaris, he's been spending most of his time every now and again in the Spring Court, or at least he was, more on that in a moment, but he's been mainly hanging with Jurian and Vassa in an old manor house in the southeast of the human territory. Speaking of Lucien's new BFFs, they've been busy. Jurian has been keeping things running in the human lands. Quote, I think he would have been crowned king by now if it wasn't for Vassa. Who would have ever thought Lucien and Jurian would be buddies? We don't know much about their history, given that Lucien did not fight in the war alongside Jurian 500 years ago. So my guess is that all he really knew about Jurian was his statement jewelry piece on Amarantha, and maybe his role with Miriam and Draken, maybe. Vassa, however, is still free from Kostjay's lake, and she is savoring every moment of it. The three of them are, let's say, getting along as thick as thieves. And Lexi, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Have I been reading too much Bonded by Thorns, or do you also get thruple energy from this conversation with the Band of Exiles?
No. Oh my God. You really have been reading too much Bonded by Thorns. Oh my goodness.
I'm just saying, it would be cool polyamorous.
I mean, I'm not good for them if they are. I just did not get that vibe whatsoever.
I don't think Lucien would do that because he's so in I'm a mated male territory. So I doubt it. But I do think that Feyre is sniffing out if Jurian and Vassa are an item.
Yes. I also think that it's also just a political thing too, where she's the high lady of the Night Court who's wanting to know about their allies in that way. Yep.
That's true. She's just getting a little nosy asking how, Jurian and Vassa are getting along.
I mean, I guess so am I. I want to know too. Now, we do know that Lucien met up with Vassa and Papa Archeron's armies to head into battle, and so that's how he really got to know her. And then at the end of ACOWAR, he was relaxed and having a good time around her. He gets a spark in his eye and wants to smile when she comes up. So I actually think that Feyre is feeling out Lucien and Vassa. I think that she is with Jurian and Vassa on more of the political side of things, how are they doing, working together? And then she's like, oh, but you and Vassa, what's going on with that? She's noticing his changes here when he's talking about her and how excited he is. I don't know. I really do think that if Lucien and Elaine don't end up together, then him and Vassa are absolutely going to be together. I don't know how that'll work with her being a human and cursed and all of that, but that's my guess.
That's for SJM to figure out the plot devices of that. But yes, no, I agree. I agree entirely. We do learn from Lucian that Vasa and Jurian are two sides of the same coin. And while they're mostly aligned with what the future of the human lands should hold, they're not exactly aligned on how to obtain it. As for news on what the future holds and their goals for it, we're kind of unsure about the details because in Silver Flames, the human lands is still pretty much in disarray and not a lot has been done. And it's been 9 months. So TBD on that. But Lucian, for a while now, has been the fox without the home, as we've discussed many times on this podcast. He's been run out of the Autumn Court, and now he's been run out of the Spring Court, too. He has found a family within the Band of Exiles. Vasa and Jurian, and I can imagine Lucian, too, since he's been living with them, they all dream of a better vision for the human realm, much like the Court of Dreams, who envision a better future for Prythian.
The conversation turns to Elaine as Lucian asks how she is and if she still mourns Grayson. I'll give Feyre this. She's trying to be neutral here by being sympathetic of Elaine's difficult situation, needing to move on from the man she loved and was engaged to, while she's also trying to be a friend to Lucian and offer him, I'll call it realistic hope. She's being honest in her observations to him, but she's not shutting down the idea that there might be a future between Lucian and Elaine. But that's the thing. What future could there possibly be between them? Lucian points out that Elaine wants nothing to do with him, and neither of them can stand to be in the same room with each other for long. Yes, including him, because it's so painful to be rejected by his mate like this consistently. Feyre keeps pushing though, because she wants him to feel like he has a home here. And listen, I can appreciate her good intentions. I really can. But the fact is, Feyre feels like because she has made a wonderful home here in Velaris at this townhouse with the Inner Circle, so should everyone else. She has a difficult time comprehending why Lucian doesn't want to be part of this when it's going so well for her. But that's the thing, Feyre. Just because you found your home here does not mean everyone else has to fit within the same mold. She's being a little selfish and narrow-minded here, and for that, she does get an L.
Yeah, Feyre, you definitely get an L because Lucian is off making a home for himself, just like she did when she left the Spring Court. Just because it doesn't involve his mate and them all being one happy family, it doesn't mean he should be mocked for it, which Feyre literally does. At the sound of the name The Band of Exiles, she scoffs because he has a name for his newfound family. How is this different than the Court of Dreams? They have a name for themselves. Cassian even scoffs at the name The Band of Exiles in Silver Flames. How is this different than the Court of Dreams? I'm so defensive of Lucian here because I'm so sad that he's finally off making a home for himself rather than, being absorbed by Tamlin or being absorbed into the Court of Dreams. And they're mocking him for it.
But that's not the only tension between these two. Lucian reminds Feyre that it's her fault he can't go back to the Spring Court because everyone hates him as a result of the way she used him in her Spring Court games. And while she recognizes her role in causing that rift between him and Tamlin and the rest of the Spring Court, she thinks, quote, I didn't quite feel guilty enough to warrant apologizing for it. Not yet. Possibly not ever.
Oh
my God.
Feyre.
I know it's your birthday, girl, but L, you get an L. This right here is why these two will not be able to truly move on as genuine friends and get past what happened at the beginning of ACOWAR. Neither of them have forgiven each other. Yes, they were able to move past it on the surface level because there was a war going on and a whole lot of other bigger problems. But Feyre still holds it against Lucian for his passive role in letting her wither away after Under the Mountain. He ultimately sided with Tamlin every time. He tried to forcibly take her back once when he found her in the Night Court. She was so angry at him because she felt like her friend betrayed her and cared more about staying in Tamlin's good graces than for her well-being. And hey, she's not wrong. She's absolutely entitled to those feelings, just like he is to his as well. Feyre purposefully put a wedge between Lucian and Tamlin, making it seem as if she was having an affair with Lucian when that was the last thing that he'd ever try to do with his friend's girl. Tamlin was at fault for so many things. But that part, that was definitely on Feyre, as we let her know during our early ACOWAR deep dive episodes. Neither of them are ready to forgive the other, despite pretending to move on most of the time.
I do want to commend Lucian because Feyre is pushing him to stay and try to make it work with Elaine and all of these things. And he's here saying, no, I am not going to sit around and hope for a mate that clearly does not want me. Last thing I want to note about this Lucian scene specifically is as he's storming out, he gives Feyre 2 presents. The bigger one is for Feyre and the smaller one is for Elaine. We know that size doesn't matter, specifically around presents, but there is some slight symbolism here. He is closer to Feyre, which she is getting the bigger gift, than he is to his mate, who is getting the smaller one. And just the fact that he fucking got her a gift in the first place, neither of them got him presents. Lucian is trying. Let him be happy. I'm so mad.
He's trying so hard to give Elaine her space while also letting her know he is here to try for something, anything, when and if she's ready. And until she is ready, he is also like, okay, well, I'm not ready until you're ready. That's why he can't be in a room with her, because she's not ready to even talk to him or look at him or have a conversation with him.
So after Lucian leaves, Feyre turns her anger on Elaine, who stayed away from that whole conversation by retreating into the kitchen.
Even Feyre recognizes that she's truly angry with herself for how she handled that conversation with Lucian. But she's also just mad at this whole situation in general, because to her, it's like, why can't we all just get along?
Elaine is trying to be as far away from Lucian as possible for as long as possible, that she is literally in the kitchen watching the kettle scream. And Feyre snaps on Elaine, asking her why she can't even try with Lucian. I want everyone to be one happy family strikes again. Feyre has only had one real experience with mating bonds. And as Helion noted last book, this is not always the case to have such a happy tale. Rhys's mated parents were not happy, and Tamlin's mated parents were definitely not happy. It is not a guarantee that if you're mates, you'll also have a best friend and find deep love. But she's not thinking about that here. She is 100% believing that Elaine and Lucian could have what her and Rhys have if they only try with each other, which maybe is true, maybe is not. I do want to point out that technically both sisters are right here. Lucian and Elaine may be mates, but he does not know her. And she feels like there's almost an obligation for them to be together, despite them maybe not being compatible right now, is what I'll say, because I'm not ruling it out. And it's almost like, well, he cares for the idea of me and feels obligated to be with me for just the reason that we're mates and mates alone. And it is also true that Elaine does not give Lucian the chance to get to know her as his mate, because she ignores him and practically runs out of the room saying that she'll get tea, but it's really to get as far away from him as possible. And he's stopped trying now because he is done feeling unwanted and instead has gone to go spend time with people who actually appreciate him. Finally, Elaine is tired of everyone pushing this mate on her, so she finally says to her sister, I do not want a mate or a male. Which is debatable, but that's neither here nor there.
Unless it's Asriel.
Unless it's a bad boy.
Oh my goodness, we're about halfway through the episode, and Nicole, I'm starting to get hungry. And this book has me wanting all the warm, hearty foods that I love to make in the fall and winter. That's where Factor comes in. Their chefs do the shopping and the chopping to bring your fresh, never frozen, fully cooked meals right to your doorstep. All you have to do is heat and eat. All of their meals are dietitian approved, so you know that you're getting the nutrition you need along with the fall flavors you crave.
When it comes to meals, everyone wants the same thing: delicious and nutritious options. That's why Factor offers 35 wholesome meals every week, including Gourmet Plus, Keto, Calorie Smart, Vegan, and Veggie, so you'll always find something that suits your lifestyle. And there's more to Factor than just lunches and dinners. From easy breakfasts to smoothies to delectable snacks, Factor has over 60 plus add-ons to keep you fueled and focused 24/7. And with a plethora of flavors, you will never get bored.
Like us, you work hard, so treat your body right with Factor. Their fresh, never frozen, chef-crafted meals make it easy to get the nutrition you need with a restaurant-like experience you deserve. Seriously, they don't taste anything like the other microwavable meals you've had. They're delicious meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon, delivered right to your door with no prep and no mess. Ready in only 2 minutes, you'll savor every last bite.
Head to factormeals.com/fantasyfangirl50 and use code fantasyfangirl50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code fantasyfangirl50 at factormeals.com/fantasyfangirl50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. It's the night of Solstice, and the Inner Circle, the Archeron sisters minus Nesta and Varian, are all drinking, laughing, sitting by the fire. This is what this book is about. It's chosen family celebrating life together and the symbolism of the merriment of the holidays. And this is what they fought for and some died for. And now, with work off their minds, they can all sit back, relax, and enjoy spending time together. This made me so excited for holidays with our family. I'm so jazzed.
Fae-vorite thought she got away with no one but Rhys remembering her birthday, but of course, her family knows and wants to celebrate. With Nuala's decorating help, Elaine made her a birthday cake too. And it is a callback to the beginning of our ACOTAR journey with the Archeron sisters' 3 dresser drawers that Fae-vorite painted. On the top of this cake, flowers to represent Elaine. In the middle, flames to represent Nesta. And on the bottom, whitest layer, stars of the night sky, which Rhys had sent to an unknowing Fae-vorite long before either of them knew each other. Back when they lived in poverty, Nesta and Elaine never commented on the painted dresser drawers, but clearly Elaine remembered. And this reflects not only that she paid attention and appreciated, but it is a little reminder of where they came from and how far they've come. Yet that these essence of them have stayed the same, with the flames and the flowers and the night sky. Elaine even requested that the decorated cake tiers be in this order, with Fae-vorite on bottom. Quote, "Because you're the foundation, the one who lifts us. You always have been." This book really is the start of Elaine and Fae-vorite becoming closer, especially while Nesta distances herself. And no matter how much time has passed or all the craziness that has happened these past few years, I think that this is something that Fae-vorite really did need to hear from her sister, that she is the foundation and always has been. When Fae-vorite goes to make a wish and blow out her candles, it's as if a puzzle piece clicks into place as she is surrounded by her family. Reading between the lines, Fae-vorite realizes that she wishes to have a baby. She doesn't tell Rhys yet, but she knows deep in her heart what she wants to make her future feel complete. And maybe this is a stretch, but I like to think that this wish, maybe through her connection to the Cauldron and maybe even the mother after she put the Cauldron back together, accelerated them successfully conceiving, considering how rare it is for Fae. But we will talk more about Fae-vorite's decision to start trying to conceive shortly.
Oh, I love that theory. Everyone is drinking, laughing, enjoying their time together. And then there's a knock on the door. Just one knock, quick and hard. Nice. Nesta has arrived.
From the first knock, the tone of the townhouse shifts. Quote, "Silence fell, interrupted only by the crackling fire." I love that there's that description of the crackling fire, which we'll later learn is traumatic for Nesta, as soon as we sense her presence on the page.
SJM is brilliant for that sentence, as we readers can feel the tension in the room completely shift from the second she enters. But like you said, there's that nod to the crackling fire. I love how it's like this note that she's fighting an internal battle that no one knows about, including us readers. It's right here on the page, and yet we have no idea what she's dealing with.
Fae-vorite invited Nesta to join the family for Solstice several days ago after Elaine's failed attempt where Nesta said she doesn't want to be part of any event with this crew. They exchanged tense words at the Wolf's Den, leading Nesta to ask why it was so important to Fae-vorite to be part of their, quote, "merry little band." Fae-vorite's response was simple. Nesta's her sister, insinuating that family sticks together. It's important to her and Elaine for Nesta to participate, though as Amryn pointed out, Elaine has hurtfully accepted that her sister doesn't want to be part of this family. But Fae-vorite is having a harder time coming to terms with that, at least not without a fight. This goes back to what we were saying a little while ago about how Fae-vorite was treating Lucien. She feels like because she has secured this happy, supportive family in life, that should extend to others around her like Lucien and Nesta. But life and relationships aren't always that simple. It's not a copy and paste for every single person. Just because this family is what Fae-vorite needs doesn't mean they're what Lucien or especially Nesta need. Again, while Fae-vorite's heart is in the right place, she is being narrow-minded and not considering the other's wants. In Silver Flames, Nesta will eventually build her own found family, her chosen family, with 2 friends who become like sisters because they will be exactly what each other needs. For Nesta, there's too much baggage here with her sisters and the others for her to truly feel like this is the supportive family for her to feel welcome and a part of. Of course, there's a lot more layers to it with trauma and walls that Nesta has spent her entire life keeping up. But for now, she doesn't want to be part of this family because she doesn't feel like she belongs with them. She doesn't feel wanted, and no matter how much they try, it's her own self-loathing that primarily makes her push away from them. She does not want them to see see how much she is failing herself, and so that is why she's really retreating. However, Feyre and Rhys are still supporting her financially, and Nesta has no problem with that, which is precisely how Feyre gets Nesta to join them for Solstice. She'll give Nesta her rent if and only if she comes to Solstice. Even with this deal that Nesta never officially accepted, Feyre didn't know if she would show up. It's like she wants the idea of Nesta, her sister and family member, to come and be part of the celebration. But Nesta herself is so sharp-edged that Feyre doesn't truly know how she fits in. Even the way that Feyre describes opening the door for her sister, quote, braced myself against the onslaught of cold, against the onslaught of Nesta. That's not welcoming.
No.
I'm sorry. She invited her over, and that's not welcoming. And I understand why, because Nesta is Nesta.
Well, who is welcoming? It's Elaine. Elaine, you can feel the relief that her eldest sister is here. She metaphorically reaches out a hand to Nesta and is smiling and invites her inside. It's that welcoming energy that Feyre probably needed to have a little bit more of. Elaine has always been so overprotected, and we've discussed that in both pros and cons, mostly cons, by Nesta. And now for a change, Elaine is in some ways protecting Nesta, making it easier for Nesta to take that first step of vulnerability into the unknown of the townhouse. This tone shift, though, is so fragile. Everyone seems to be holding a collective breath, just hoping that they don't set off the Nesta bomb. So when Nesta looks at Amren, and in her response to Amren's happy solstice girl, she says, quote, pretty earrings, with a small smile. And the room visibly relaxes. They're like, oh my God, thank God, she chose to be kind tonight. There's this like, oh.
Which, as much as we'll get into Nesta's POV next book and understand her complexities more, this is a tough look for her, showing just how difficult of a person she is to be around most of the time. Like, we are not arguing that whatsoever.
Oh, and we're not going to let Nesta off the hook for one moment, and we're going to look at it from all angles. But Feyre begs her mate Mind to Mind to please start talking normal again. Please, please, please. So Rhys asks Varian about Solstice at the summer court, which causes Varian to go into a unnecessarily detailed description. There's this desperation for any kind of reprieve or normalcy.
And don't worry, I'll be doing the same during today's Suriel with Winter Solstice.
You'll be doing an unnecessarily detailed description. Amazing.
At least any and all information we have available to us, yes.
This is why we love you. Let's get back to the merriment, shall we? With presents. First and foremost, let's talk about this Inner Circle present system. For 2 centuries, they have a tradition where they all give Rhys their presents, and he stores them in the communal present trove of his own room of requirement / pocket realm. Why Rhys, though? Because he is the only person who can be trusted not to snoop on the gifts. It all started after Rhys caught Amren shaking the boxes to see what was inside. This was, of course, after Amren saw Cassian sniffing each box. Again, it's just so much of that wholesome family banter that we love so much. So Rhys, again, the most trustworthy, hides them away. Do you think that Rhys is actually the most trustworthy, or do you think he's full of shit here and he actually snoops?
I like to think that because he appreciates surprises so much that he's trustworthy not to snoop.
I think the only person he would snoop on is Moore's gifts, so he knows how to react. So he's not like, thanks.
Yeah.
Now, it would not be a holiday special if we didn't go through what everyone got. And we have to start with Amren, mainly because her opening presents is described as, quote, I'd seen some animals tear into carcasses with less ferocity.
I have such a vivid image of her doing this. She's like so cartoon-like, you know?
Amazing. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest. So from Asriel, Amren gets exquisite pearl and diamond earrings. From Feyre, she gets a specially designed folding carrier for her puzzles. And of course, a ruby and silver brooch shaped like a pair of feathered wings that earn her a kiss on the cheek from Amren. These stones are described as, quote, fracturing the light and burning with their own inner fire. This fire, these wings are there to represent that fire angel bird thing that she became at the end of last book. From Rhys, he gives her the 3 pieces of jewelry that he got from Neve's store last episode because he thought she would love them all, and so he just bought them all, causing Amren to actually squeal. And of course, from Varian, he gives her a fine ermine coat, which, Lexi, do you know what ermine is?
No, I really want to Google it, but I have a feeling you're about to tell me.
I'm going to tell you.
What is it?
It's a stoat.
And this stoat comes back.
So for those who you don't know, this was a way callback. Way back when we did our first Ask Us Anything episode, we were asked what our Patronuses were. And I took the Harry Potter quiz and I learned that my Patronus is a stoat, which I had to Google because I didn't know what the fuck a stoat was. And it was an animal that looks in every single crevice for food. And I've felt so seen. So apparently it also makes a good coat, which is concerning for my Patronus. But Varian also gives Amren a small box that she opens and gives him a very private small smile. We never learn what's inside this box, but I'm assuming this is one of the things that he went out to go get after he arrived in Valaris. But what could this be? Because my mind immediately goes to a ring.
Oh, well, talk about the biggest mystery of the book.
Yeah.
So I see what you say about a ring. I don't know how Amren would feel about, like, do you think like he's proposing to her in that moment?
I don't think they would do something as formal as like proposing. I think it would just be like hey, like I really enjoy you. I want to spend my life with you. Do you want to do the damn thing? I don't think they would do the whole like proposal engagement. Like I think that they would just be like, yeah, let's do it. But then I feel like we would get a description, especially in Silver Flames, of Amren wearing a ring.
Yeah. So I actually think that the small box is something sentimental, maybe something that alludes to her true self that she gave up so that she could come back to him. And so it's really meaningful and we don't know what it is, but it's something that represents the sacrifice that she did. And that's why she's so happy about it. Or, you know what? It could easily be something sexual too.
What does Moore get? We only know what Cassian got her for Solstice, and that is a red negligee because he had no idea what to get her. So he finally just straight up asked her, and she told him this is what she wants.
Sounds like us and our parents. Like
I don't.
Our
like
parents are so practical, and so they just literally give us exactly what they want every single year. We buy it. It's how things work. Now that I have kids and I need to give them more presents, like I try to do something that they won't expect, but
can
they're the hardest people ever to shop for.
We need to be very clear. It's not a red negligee. No,
no. It's the most practical things like ever. Like a new teapot or something like that.
Next, Cassian gets from Moore the red silk undershorts to match her red negligee, which is iconic. And from Feyre, he gets a painting of the Bat Boys' story. We don't know what part of their story it is, but my guess is maybe something to do with the blood right. Although next year she'll paint all three of them touching Ramiel at the same time. So maybe it is something else, but we never learn. Next up, Asriel gets from Moore a set of bright blue towels with his initials embroidered on them, which we can gather this is Moore's bad gift giving on full display. Which, side note, what are Asriel's initials? Like, we don't know his last name or anything.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a little mystery. Then from Feyre, he gets a painting of the Bat Boy story. Again, we never learned what this painting is of. And from Elaine, he gets a powder to mix in with any drink for his headaches that everyone else seems to give him, since he rubs his temples so often. Asriel tips his head back and laughs. This is rare from Asriel, especially because it's described as, quote, deep and joyous. Yeah, it is. This just shows how observant Elaine is of Asriel and how maybe they don't talk very much, but she knows him. She's been watching him. And this is just a fun parallel between the spy master who has, the shadows who tell him things that others might not notice, and Elaine who notices things that others might not.
Real quick, pause on the present talk, because throughout this novella, we've seen how much Elaine is beginning to fit in with this family as she finds her place among them. We especially see it on display here as they exchange presents during the Winter Solstice. From laughing when Rhys offers to model a red negligee for Cassian, to the clever gift that she gives Asriel, which makes everyone, none more so than Az, laugh. While it might be around everyone else, this is such a sweet moment between them. She's in on the fun, which is a particularly hard thing to do with Az, who isn't known to roar with laughter whatsoever. Nesta certainly notices this about her sister, and it's, quote, as if Nesta were looking at us through some sort of window. Yes, she purposefully distanced herself from this family, yet the consequences of her choices and behaviors are on full display. Not to mention, she was the one who tended to a broken Elaine months ago after they turned Fae, and now she can't connect to this Elaine with life and joy in her life, and she's not part of it, even though she was there during her darkest moment.
Well, speaking of Elaine, what does Elaine get for Winter Solstice? From Feyre, she gets a pale blue cloak with armholes, perfect for gardening in the chillier months. And from Lucian, enchanted gloves that won't tear or become sweaty while she gardens. On the surface, this is a perfect gift for Elaine. But as Feyre notices by Elaine's dismissal of the present, she wonders if Elaine likes to have torn gloves and sweaty hands, as if it's proof of her labor and joy in the place she loves most. As I mentioned earlier, this is just another moment to show don't tell how little Lucian knows her, and it definitely is to show how opposite it is to Asriel. And I also want to bring up, like I mentioned earlier, if she gave him a chance to get to know her, maybe he would have gotten her something that would connect to her on a deeper level. But then we have Feyre. From Amren, Feyre gets an illuminated ancient manuscript. From Asriel, some rare and vibrant paint from the continent. Asriel's a good gift giver.
He really is, isn't he?
Cassian, a leather sheath for a blade that goes down the groove of her spine, just like a true Illyrian warrior. From Elaine, she gets paintbrushes that are monogrammed with Feyre's initials and the Night Court insignia on the handles. From Moore, she gets bright pink fleece-lined slippers, iconic. And from Lucian, to her and Rhys, this is the big present from earlier, 3 bottles of fine liquor with the note, "You'll need it." What the fuck does that mean?
Maybe he knows Cassian will drink all their good liquor, so he needs to replenish it. But really, I think it's his way of saying, have fun with your crazy family.
Okay, that's a lot more, I was thinking it was so ominous. I was like, what?
Oh, I think it's just a nod to oh my God, you all are you need more alcohol here to deal with everybody.
Iconic. Second to last, let's go through Rhys's presents. The only gift we know that he receives is a painting from Feyre of her in the Ouroboros. The painting that she did back when she was in Paulina's boarded up studio for the first time, and her first time painting after the war. Quote, "For on that painting, I'd show him what I'd not revealed to anyone, what the Ouroboros had revealed to me, the creature inside myself, the creature full of hate and regret and love and sacrifice, the creature that could be cruel and brave, sorrowful and joyous." She gives him herself as no one will ever see her, except Cassian, who snoops over Rhys's shoulder and begs him that this is not their newest pet. Iconic.
I don't know why this is I know this is not accurate, but I don't know why I just see Crookshanks.
All I can see is that the furry lady. I just see furry lady.
From Cats?
Yes. Almost exactly what it is. Yes. I just see Cats from hell, which is not far off from the real cats. Anyway, most vulnerable, receives 2 words of thanks from Rhys. Quote, "It's beautiful." Recall back to Akawar when he asked about her and what she saw in the mirror, and he was surprised to learn that she loved every bit of that reflection. This is him saying, I love every bit of that reflection too. The good, the bad, and the possible new furry pet. Last but not least, though, we have Nesta. As presents resume when Nesta arrives, Feyre notices that none of the gifts have Nesta's name on them, except for one, apparently, by Elaine, who went to a bookshop and asked for recommendations and was given 5 romances in return. Nesta doesn't look at her sister, but she still says, "Thank you." Not something we hear very often from Nesta, showing just how much this kind gesture penetrates that hard exterior she's put up. And of course, we also have the gift from Cassian. While not in the presence mound, he tries to give it to her while walking her home. She will refuse this gift, and as a result, he will throw that gift in the river. We know from Silver Flames that he got her a tiny book of a miniature illuminated manuscript, one of the first printed books in existence. Oh, that's so sweet. And we also know that he immediately regretted the second he threw it in the river. But I do have a quick side note. Next book, the only Inner Circle member who gets Nesta a present other than Cassian and her sisters is Asriel. Bad brother-in-law look by Rhys, by the way. That's not great. I also wonder if this is because Asriel feels guilty that no one got her a present this year except for Elaine. And noticing and observing how much Nesta is grateful for that present from Elaine and how much she saw that extension of kindness, he wants to give her that extension of kindness as well.
All of that, yes. And he'll get to know the real Nesta through their training in a way that Rhys never, ever gets to see Nesta. He doesn't, they don't like each other straight up. No. He will get to see her with her friends and the priestesses. He'll get to be with her in the House of Wind. I
Poor
just
ass.
read that part of Silver Flames. And he'll gain a new appreciation for her, and I think also a respect for her as he gets to know that real Nesta there. It makes it so much more natural for him to give her a gift.
All of this present talk has me thinking about what I might want to get for this holiday season. And Lexi, you don't have to get me a reg negligee. You can get me Book of the Month because that's going to be at the top of my list.
Book of the Month is more than a subscription service. They've made it their mission to help readers discover new books that they will love and to promote the work of emerging authors. We absolutely love that. Every month, they offer best new titles to select from. I personally recently picked out The Wild Huntress from their October picks, and I am so excited to read that. You all know that we have been all about the seasonal books lately.
Yes.
The best part about Book of the Month is that these amazing books are at a fantastic price and the shipping is always free. Plus, their loyalty program is a cherry on top, offering even better deals the longer you stick around.
I am so genuinely impressed by Book of the Month and how they select their books. Their editorial team goes through hundreds of titles to handpick the most engaging ones for us. Talk about an awesome job, by the way. That's
right.
Amazing. No matter which books you choose, you know you're in for a treat. Book of the Month's focus on new and emerging authors allows them to offer books for their members that otherwise we wouldn't have found. There's something new for every type of reader.
Right now, you can head over to bookofthemonth.com and snag your first book for only $5 using the code PUMPKIN. It's such a good deal. I cannot recommend Book of the Month enough. It's not just about receiving books. It's about the joy of discovery for us readers. That's bookofthemonth.com and then use code PUMPKIN to get your first book for $5.
Make sure to let Book of the Month know that we sent you by selecting Fantasy Fangirls under podcasts in the survey after picking out your book.
Solstice night continues in a blur of laughter and drinking, celebrating the holiday as a family. Have we mentioned that yet? Around 2:30 a.m., Nesta gets ready to leave. She even gives Elaine a soft kiss on the top of her head for goodbye. As promised, Feyre offers Nesta a banker's note for her rent when she follows her to the front door. It breaks my heart that she hoped her older sister wouldn't take the money because she wanted this to be more than about their deal. She wanted Nesta to be here because she wanted to be here with all of them. But alas, Nesta takes the money, which we'll learn later is for 3 months' rent. And with that, she walks out into the snowy night.
But Cassian chases Nesta out of the townhouse because he is fucking over this shit.
He was observing her all evening, though she never spoke to him once.
He's hurt that she cut him out of her life entirely. And after patiently waiting for her to come to him all night, he's had it. He's had enough of this. And what he really wants is to not have it out in the street or yell at each other. He wants her to talk to him because he knows how much she's been pushing everyone else away. And he wants her to know, I'm an outlet. You can talk to me.
Like we said last episode, after the war ended, not much has happened between these two. After everything they endured together at the final battle, with her saving him from the Cauldron's blast, him confessing his love to her moments from death, her refusing to leave his side so they could die together, their kiss, she's completely retreated away from him.
Cassian knows firsthand how post-war trauma can change someone fundamentally and how people need time for those shadows to leave their eyes. And with what he confessed to her, quote, I have no regrets in my life but this, that we did not have time. There's this, we almost had it all, frustration that lingers in that declaration that's like looming over them, basically.
Well, and now they do have that time.
Yeah.
And this is how she's spending it. He's still felt this shred of hope that after she works through what she needs to, that there still might be a future between them, even if he won't admit it to himself as he wonders why he even cares. Neither of them will say it for a long time, but it's that pull and that charge of the mating bond, the kind Rhys and Feyre have at the soul deep level. That hope is evident in how he goes after her. It's impossible for what happened between them during the final battle to not loom over this interaction. Even in this moment of catching up to her, he doesn't know what to say to her. More than anything, he just wants to face Nesta and talk to her. He's mad at her. He loves her. He wants to show her that he is there for her through thick and thin. But she's not having any of it. Nesta hasn't treated Cassian this badly since ACOFAS, I think, and maybe the first part of ACOWAR after she turned Fae. But now her words cut so much deeper after what they've obviously experienced together and how they've connected. On the battlefield, they showed their true selves and their true feelings for one another, and she can't take that back as much as she's trying to right now. She makes the word you sound like a flat-out insult to Cassian, though he doesn't back down from her. He never does. Soon enough, she lashes out at him. Quote, "Stop following me. Stop trying to haul me into your happy little circle. Stop doing all of it." He knew a wounded animal when he saw one. And yes, that's exactly what she is. Where others see her for being cruel and cold, he sees someone who is deeply hurt and trying to push everyone else away, especially him. But my poor Cassian can only handle so much. Like his Batboy brothers, Cassian grapples with his self-worth, and Nesta just twists the knife to him.
Cassian says to Nesta, quote, "Your sisters love you. I can't for the life of me understand why, but they do." We have only just really started talking about the cruelty of Nesta, and trust us, we're not going to let her off the hook as we get into ACOFAS. And there are also occasional lines like this too from Cassian. People often say how cruel Nesta is to Cassian, but he is not a puppy at her feet. He fights back, and that's why I really appreciate him and her as mates together.
When he tries to get her to talk to him, she stares at him, quote, then snorted and walked away, as if he were nothing, as if he weren't worth her time, the effort, a low-born Illyrian bastard.
Oh, that's bad. That's bad.
Yeah. To protect herself, or rather to punish herself, Nesta doesn't have the capability of even having a normal conversation with Cassian. She can't open up that possibility because she doesn't think that she deserves love. So instead, she pushes it back on Cassian to make him think he doesn't deserve her love. Nesta, you get an L for making him feel this way when he is trying so hard, to the point where after she walks away, he throws her gift he spent months tracking down for her into the Sidra. And even though he'll still follow her home from afar to ensure she returns safely, it's one more way of him feeling so fed up and so over her, giving up on that last sliver of hope he held onto.
As Nesta continues to push him away, we get 2 mentions of Nesta looking like a queen, which means we have to add to our Nesta queen count. And I went through all of our outlines and found the actual number because we had a...
So behind the scenes look here, because this is absolutely hilarious, maybe to us, but not Hayden.
I thought it was like 3. And so we recorded like 4 different versions of it last time, from 3 to like 6 or 7. And the answer is actually not 3. It was 8. And so this is now 9 and 10. Sorry, Hayden, but I promise this is right.
And that's why it got cut out of last episode entirely, because we had it only up to 7 and it was actually 8. And of course it was.
But I want to point out that we're at 10. And we haven't even gotten to Silver Flames yet. Like, that is wild. I can't wait to see what the ending count for Nesta is a queen and Like calls to Like after, or like.
Oh my gosh. I was just listening to the chapter after she goes to the middle and faces the Kelpie. Oh my gosh. In one scene, Like calls to Like was said maybe 4 times.
Yep. And then there's the prison scene with Lanthus, and I'm pretty sure it's at least 3 times there. Absolutely. But we switch to our first and only Nesta POV scene of this novella, which is not even a new chapter POV switch like the others have been. Instead, it's in the same chapter, and I believe this is to get us readers used to the switching back and forth in prep for Silver Flames. Nesta's POV starts off with her locking her 4th and final lock of her apartment, not just sealing herself inside, but removing herself as much as possible from the outside world. And then she slumps to the floor against the door. I love that this section is in front of her front door, which is exactly where Silver Flames opens up, with Cassian on the other side, the side that she is closing herself off from, and he's banging against the door for her to open up. That is not the only setup for Silver Flames that we get, though. We learn that she was struggling in the townhouse with the fire consistently going snap, crunch, just like her father's neck. This line gives us so much more insight to where Nesta is beyond just, the sound being triggering. We realize that there is so much going on behind this bitch of a wall she's built for everyone else to see. We learn that she is struggling more than anyone realizes, except for maybe Cassian, and she is dealing with this all alone. By choice, yes, but alone nonetheless.
She can't muster up any feeling, not shame for taking Feyre's money for her rent, not anything. Nesta is a shell of herself as time slips by. If she let these emotions come up, they would be too much, and she cannot face her inner demons. She cannot face her own self-loathing. She cannot face her own failures as an individual. So she pushes it all down and locks it away, resulting in feeling numb and nothing, leaving only silence echoing around her.
Are you excited for Silver Flames? I'm excited for Silver Flames.
I am. It's going to be, there's going to be some tough parts to navigate through. I know that. And I really hope that we do it justice, not just for Nesta's character, but also for all of those who have felt like that as well. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Back to Feyre and Rhys and the happier conversation. Sorry, there's not a better transition with that there.
Whoa.
After he winnows the two of them to the mountain cabin for some peace and quiet, oh, you know it, Feyre has one more solstice present for him. She shows him mind to mind the gift that she is ready to have children. The image of the bone carver. I mean, the beautiful blue-eyed bird.
Happy solstice. Here's a horror show.
The beautiful, blue-eyed, dark-haired boy, the promise of their future family that she hopes he deems as a gift too. And yes, absolutely he does. Sweet Rhys starts shaking and he gets all teary-eyed. Recall back to chapter 55, of ACOFAS. Rhys told her, quote, "I would be happy beyond reason, though, if you one day did honor me with children, to share that with you." He has lived a long life already, more than 500 years, and he has experienced a lot of ups and downs, to put that mildly. But to get to live this life and be happy with his mate is a dream come true for him. Of course he wants a family, but he has been patiently waiting for her to be ready. After all, it always comes down to choice for him with his mate. And now that Feyre is ready and she's sure she's ready, he is so excited to take that next step. He's been so worried that his luck will run out, that no one deserves to be this happy, almost as if Feyre will realize that she doesn't want this life and will leave him. But this is her saying right now, I choose you in this life. I choose you to be the father of our children and to grow a family together. This novella has been building up to this moment, where Feyre shares with Rhys that she wants to start trying. I know I've touched on this already, but it's worth saying again. The war has changed her perspective about wanting to wait. Her conversation with the Weaver and seeing the fate she almost had changed something in her. She said during that conversation in chapter 55 of ACOFAS, quote, "I want to live first." But in Frost and Starlight, she's realizing that living this life equals wanting to have a child part of it. Speaking from experience, our lives don't end after we have children, even if it can sometimes feel like that, especially in the early days. Yes, life drastically changes. It gets louder and busier and will test every ounce of patience you have. But it is also a new chapter of life that brings so much joy and connection and gratitude for the little things. My family means the world to me. And I also just want to say real quickly, I understand that children are not everyone's choice. And I absolutely honor that. This is simply my personal experience as a mother. My family means the world to me. Being together with my husband and our 2 children is my favorite thing in the entire world. Being partners in parenthood has deepened my relationship with Jake. Seeing him be a dad, like I can't stop smiling right now. Seeing him be a dad has made me fall in love with him all over again. And our children spark so much life into our lives. Even if it's messy and chaotic, there is just so much love there. And like I said earlier, Feyre realizes that there isn't always a tomorrow, but she isn't making this decision to start trying for children out of fear or like she isn't truly ready and she feels like the clock is ticking. That's not the vibe here at all. There's a sense of completeness to her future and life when she thinks about growing their family. And there's no reason to wait when they want this so much.
I'm like tearing up, Lex. That was so beautiful. And I'm just so, as someone who does not have children and quite frankly is not in the stage of life where that is even something I would want, like Feyre is noticing here, I'm just so happy for you. And I just like hear you talk about that. And I'm just like the fact, because I remember you mentioning when you were younger, like wanting to be a mom. And that was just something that you knew you wanted in your life. And I agree with you with what you said earlier. Feyre is allowed to change her mind and realize that tomorrow is not guaranteed. And I know that the fandom does have really strong feelings about her making this 180 pivot. But one of the things that I really hope people get out of this Frost and Starlight deep dive, especially from your POV with it as someone who has gone through this shift, is that this is not actually out of the blue as it feels to a lot of us readers.
Yep.
There is so much nuance and so much setup for this change that I really think it was exactly what was next for her and Rhys in this chapter of their lives.
Yes.
I also want to point out that SJM gave birth to her first son in June 2018. This book was published in May 2018. So there might have been some overlap with how she was feeling in her personal life and wanting to start a family with Josh, and when she was writing / plotting / editing out this book. So I just want to point out that maybe there was also some internal things that she reflected into Feyre. Now, things turn, baby making feral. Fucking against a wall of a cabin hard enough that indeed the pictures do come off, which is referencing chapter 55 of ACOFAS. How many times are we going to reference chapter 55 of ACOFAS? I did not expect this.
They're in the cabin already. I mean,
when Rhys did promise Feyre, quote, next time I'll fuck you against a wall. Well, this might not be the next time that they were talking about. This is the next step for them. The cabin is so symbolic of everything Rhys and Feyre are. It's where Feyre took her biggest steps towards healing. It's where she began to dream and see a future for herself that made her happy and full of joy. It's where Rhys gave his famous chapter 54 monologue. It's where he got kicked out of the Birchen for being a stiffy boy. It's where they officially committed themselves as mates together in chapter 54 and 55. And now it is where they decide to start a family together. This cabin is where the fandom fell in love with their love story. This is just the next step for them that they are ready to take together in that love story. But the sex scene does have another element to it. Mind sex! Feyre asking Rhys while he's pounding inside of her if he can fuck her in her mind too. I feel like this serves two purposes. One, it's an exciting newness to a sex scene that we haven't gotten this detailed since chapter 55. And as Feyre and Rhys both say, this is the extra bridge of connection that is relinquishing any part of themselves that was not connected to the other person. Quote, filling every crack and pit so there was not one part of me that was not full of him. I'm sorry, I swear. Brimming with his dark, glorious essence and undimming love.
After bang, bang, bangity bang all night, Rhys and Feyre return to Valaris in the morning, where now it's Rhys's turn to give her his solstice gift for her. He winnows them to an estate in ruins along the river, one of the many grand riverfront homes that was destroyed in the Hybern attack. With a dramatic reveal, just like Feyre anticipated, he says this is her present. And she's like, okay. But Feyre darling, Rhys purchased this property for them. After this ruin and rubble is cleared out, he wants her to build the house of her dreams for this big and beautiful and soon-to-be growing family of theirs. Rhys got the idea for the river house after his lighthearted conversation with his Illyrian brothers, who were complaining about being downgraded to the one remaining bedroom in the townhouse with beds absurdly too small for them. The fact that the townhouse is too small for this big family has already been top of mind for both Rhys and Feyre, and you know it's Rhys who will take the initiative to upgrade into a larger space. She's even like, this is too much, and he's like, okay, fine, then consider it a birthday present too. Like, you're getting the house no matter what here. To have a home that can comfortably fit their family, that feels like a home for each and every one of them, even if they don't live there full time, is all these two have ever dreamed of. Not the big property itself, but what it represents. A big, happy, and united family that spends time together and loves each other.
I will never not melt at this part of the book because it's not only a gift for space and family. Yes, it absolutely is that, but it's also a gift for her artist mind as well. Because as he mentions, you are designing this, like build a house for Moore and her many closets, and build a house for, Elaine and a garden, and also build a nursery. Like that, just like, oh, golly. I love the little detail, though, that Feyre doesn't call it a river manor. She calls it the river house very specifically. I think manor, in part, is so tied to the spring manor, so there is that connotation with it, but also house. It's homey. It's that cozy family feel, where manor is more formal, and that's just not Rhys and Feyre.
Yes, indeed. As much as I love how this book is putting us in that winter mindset, it also reminds me of how dry the cold weather can be. But lucky for us, we've got Element to keep us hydrated all season long.
Element is an electrolyte solution that has enough sodium, potassium, and magnesium to get you feeling and performing your best. It has 0 sugar, 0 artificial colors, or other dodgy ingredients to hold you back, yet it still packs in the flavor. I absolutely love Element. There's so many flavors to choose from. Have we mentioned that already? Our favorites are watermelon salt. There's the new sparkling line. The watermelon sparkling, I think, is my new obsession. I started doing HIIT workout classes, and Element has been a part of my daily routine every single day. And of course, I love my mango chili because I can't ditch my favorite, my original favorite.
And you want to know a pro tip as we head into the cooler seasons? You can put the chocolate salt flavor, because yes, there's a whole chocolate salt line, into your favorite mug and make an imitation hot chocolate drink. It's literally so easy and feels like a yummy treat for those cozy fall evenings.
Element came up with a fantastic offer for our listeners. Get a free sample pack with any Element purchase at drinklmnt.com/FFG. Be sure also to try the new Element Sparkling, like I was talking about. It is a bold 16-ounce can of sparkling electrolyte water that is perfect for on the go. Walking into Tamlin's manor house the next day, Rhys has some conflicting feelings. Yes, he is still mad at Tamlin. But the words that Lucien said to Feyre, quote, "Your mate should have known better than to kick a down male," it lingers in his mind. That sinking feeling he had when he left the Spring Court the first time in this book, it hasn't really gone away. And while we could say this is guilt, and I think buried down, it definitely could be, I think it's more guilt of not being the bigger person like he normally is. I'm leaning more towards there's that pull to make Tamlin, his old friend, not feel so lost. As Rhys notes, quote, "It was not forgiveness. It was not kindness. I would not ever forget what he had done to those I loved most. But it was Solstice, or it had been. And perhaps because Feyre had given me a gift greater than any I could dream of, I said, quote, 'You can waste away and die after we've sorted out this new world of ours.'" Rhys knows Lucien is right because they do need Tamlin as an ally before the dust has settled on this new world. Again, Rhys is seeing the board so much further out than most others.
Well, and Feyre too, because she learned her lesson last book as well. So Rhys is like, okay, we don't want to burn bridges again here. While Rhys is talking logistics about getting Summer Court soldiers to patrol the border for Spring Court, Tamlin's mind is obviously elsewhere, because instead of replying to anything of note that Rhys just told him, Tamlin asks, "Do you think she will forgive me?" Oh boy. Rhys thinks to himself that he doesn't know if wishing someone happiness is the same as forgiveness, and I wholeheartedly agree. Absolutely. You don't have to forgive someone to move on or genuinely wish them well. As Tamlin goes on to ask if he deserves her forgiveness and if Rhys forgives Tamlin for his part in his mother and sister's deaths, we truly start to see the root of where this is coming from. In my opinion, this isn't just a scorned lover who wants forgiveness from his ex to be able to move on. This is a broken individual who has felt the weight of all his wrongdoings come crashing down to the point of not caring that he lives anymore. He, perhaps finally, acknowledges his primary role in hurting Feyre and being all wrong for her. He already felt the regret and shame for his role in Rhys's family's death. We know that for how he never liked to talk about it and how he burned their wings. Like you said last episode, Nicole, maybe it was Rhys's harsh words a few days ago that made him truly see that his downfall is his own doing. Not Feyre's, not the Night Court's, not Lucien's. He still loves Feyre. That much is obvious, and he knows he will never get her back. That's not the goal. But through these words of asking about forgiveness and if he deserves it, he internalizes the responsibility, which is a first we've seen from Tamlin. As he sinks further into his depression here at the manor, he has nothing to do but contemplate what he did wrong, how he ended up here, and considering those he hurt, especially his former fiance. And even though he's still contemplating it and kind of coming to this realization of his role of responsibility, it certainly is not in a healthy way because he does not have anyone to support him in this. He's doing this all by himself, and it's only going to spiral further and further down for him. Does his question about getting forgiveness deserve sympathy or the chance at redemption? I personally think his innate sadness and self-reflection does, but unfortunately, we won't see any improvement in Silver Flames. That's where I really see the fall of any redemption arc for him. Here with him asking if he deserves forgiveness, leaving so much unspoken, there's this self-awareness and realization of how badly he's messed up. And it's not like he's trying to get the girl back or get back at her, but he desperately needs peace for himself to have the slightest chance at moving on. And he never gets that. He never has his own redemption, and he never has an opportunity like Nesta will. I don't want to say that's not his fault because there is plenty that is his fault here. And he does not have what Nesta has, and he does not have the same opportunities of such a redemption as Nesta does, because I think she would have otherwise gone down the same hole as him.
I'm so conflicted because I see where you're coming from. Absolutely, yes. And he threw Lucian out literally on his doorstep. Nesta pushes people like that away too. So I'm not saying that she's not doing that as well. I agree with you that I feel like if there was any redemption, it would have been in this book, or even it would have just like lingered with what happened. Like his story would have ended with the end of ACOWAR. I will also say we're getting, 2 or 3 more books of ACOTAR, so we don't know what's going to happen with Tamlin. My biggest hope for him is that this continuation of realizing how much he has played a role in his own life is continued, and he starts to look at it in a much more healthy way versus how he's dealing with it right now.
How he is in Silver Flames, he's almost entirely in beast mode at that point. He's completely lost his humanity.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
I don't know how there is any coming back after that.
I trust SJM that if she has a redemption, or at least I don't really want to say redemption with Tamlin, quite frankly, if she has a conclusion to his story arc, she will find a way to tie that in after he's been in beast mode for so long. And our story has really drifted away from Tamlin. Yep. And I wouldn't be surprised if he just lives out the rest of his life in beast mode. Is that a sad ending to his tale? Yeah, it is. And I'm kind of indifferent to it, if I'm being honest.
I guess I wish in Silver Flames, which it happens 9 months later, that there had been some kind of communicate, like how he was working with at least a summer court or something like that, or that there was some kind of him trying.
Moving away from Tamlin, let's go to another blonde, and that is our last more centric chapter of this book and the series to date. While it is short, I have questions. First up, we learned that Mor lied to Feyre and that she's not going to the Winter Court right away after Solstice. Instead, she is going to her own sprawling estate of Athelwood. And she also took to riding her horse, Elia. I felt like SJM would not give a horse a real name if it didn't have some kind of special meaning. So I looked it up and I found 2 meanings. And quite frankly, I could not figure out which one was correct or more accurate. So I'm just going to list them both. Both mention how the name originates from Hebrew, which is very in alignment with SJM's storytelling. One meaning is God has answered, and the other is literally that. So I kind of like the spookiness of Elia meaning other in Hebrew. That's kind of fun. Speaking of that spookiness, though, while on this ride, Elia's ears go flat against her head, and Mor casts her power out, because apparently she can do that, to see what this could be that's causing this alertness from her horse. Quote, "There, between a snarl of thorns, a patch of darkness. It did not move, did not seem to do anything but linger and watch." Wow, what could this be? I've got some options. So, number 1, Bryaxis is watching her, and it's really just a reminder to us readers that, hey, Bryaxis is out and about. Number 2, this could be symbolism for Mor keeping her secrets and how they're catching up to her and haunting her, and it's time to come clean. Number 3, this could be something new that is introduced. Probably not, because I feel like this would have come up in Silver Flames. Or number 4, this could be Mor's own version of the House of Wind and what it'll be like for Nesta. That darkness lingering that will basically become their friend. And these are the only options I can talk about until we get to Maasverse Madness, because boy, oh boy, did Reddit have some good theories.
Fast forward a whole month, and the art studio is ready for the first day of classes. The studio is meant for people, specifically children, to have a safe space to process their trauma through creating, like with painting and other crafts. The response from the community has been so positive as parents inquire how soon classes start and other artists volunteer to teach, showing just how much Feyre's vision resonates with others as they jump at the opportunity to partake however they can. Feyre and Rosenia have poured their hearts into getting the studio ready and organizing this business. The studio is painted and fully stocked with supplies. They have a schedule packed with teachers. They have a game plan to both be in attendance at all classes for these first few weeks, so all participants can get to know them both. And of course, they have the black tapestry of Void hanging as a reminder to, quote, work through loss no matter how overwhelming to create. And throughout this past month, these two have become good friends. Ricinia has an eye for design, so Feyre asks her to help plan the river house. On this first day for the first class, Feyre is so nervous. And I get it, Nicole has referred to how we felt, and I'll say still feel, about Fantasy Fangirls. And it is so true for any of us as we begin a new venture. Will anyone want to participate or engage? Will anyone care enough to show up? It doesn't matter how much you plan or even who says yes they want to, you won't really believe it until you see it. But the children who experienced trauma from the war, and especially the Hybern attack, do show up. Hesitant, yet hopeful. And my heart bursts with pride for Feyre as she smiles and begins teaching. She has found her calling, her place in this community, how she can truly give back in a way that fills her cup and helps her as well as these community members, children, and other artists alike.
And I love that little extra detail that they don't charge for classes. There is so much of what the old Feyre needed on display here. Feyre, when she was poor, she wouldn't have had the capability to do something that wasn't entirely free. And now she gets to create that environment for others and give back into the community. After a year plus of chaos, saving a court from an evil queen, after being rescued from an abusive ex, and, saving the world as we know it as a whole, Feyre has truly found peace. She has a routine, she has a plan, she has a goal, and she gets to see those dreams come to fruition. This is the dream that came to her in ACOFAS before Rhys came to the cabin to do his whole Chapter 54 download. Feyre thought then, quote, "At night we'd go upstairs together. He would whisper stories of his adventures, and I'd whisper about my day. And there it was, a future." This might seem silly, but I'm so happy for this fictional character, Feyre. She's found a passion for herself, and as she says, quote, "I didn't know there was a place, a world where artists might be valued, taken care of. I never dreamed of such a thing." I truly feel like so moved by this line. How this is so much bigger than her just going into business. This is her finding a deeper purpose.
And I mean, isn't that what we all want? I'm seriously tearing up here. Yeah. That's honestly how I feel about Fantasy Fangirls. I know we keep referring back to this, but it's so prominent for us in our lives and how we can personally relate. I had no idea that this fun hobby would grow into this community and deeper purpose of giving back while filling up my cup and creating such a spark. And I know it might seem almost silly that, we found such a deeper purpose in our real lives by talking about fantasy books, but it's so much more than that. Yeah. So much more. And it's all because of this community and how there's a bigger purpose than simply talking about books.
Yes. Well, it's also these characters and the journeys they go on and how much we see them reflected in our own lives and their struggles and their overcomings. And it's just, Feyre deserves this happy ending so much. And she is truly leaving the world a better place than when she found it, which for so many of us, that is our overall goal. And Lexi, I hope that we leave the world a better place than we found it, even if it is through talking about fantasy books into a microphone for 6 hours.
Me too. Yes. All right, friends, let's turn our full attention to foreshadowing important moments in, the only remaining book of this series. Cassian complains that the House of Wind is too boring to stay at, where Az just sneaks off into the shadows and Cassian's left all alone. Ho, ho, ho! That's all going to change in about 9 months, my dear Cassian, except for the part about Az sneaking off into the shadows. He'll still do that and then enter the dining room at the most inopportune time.
Cassian also tells Nesta that she should just come live at the house, and she whirls on him in that moment. Not much changes in 9 months. She will be told to move into the house and she will whirl on her family. Rhys calls out a novice Illyrian Cauldron who has been stirring up shit at the Iron Crest clan of Illyrian warriors. We will learn early in Silver Flames that Cauldron died and the oncoming Bloodrite just miles away from Ramiel's base.
And when he dies, all this unrest just disappears. So, big issue of Frost and Starlight solved, everybody, in one sentence at the beginning of Silver Flames.
That no one remembers. I was like, who the fuck is Cauldron? Speaking of this Bloodrite, though, this is where Azriel is talking about having a, quote, accident happen to Cauldron, which, by the way, side note, this looks real sus because did Azriel kill Cauldron?
Yes, I am absolutely convinced that Azriel had him killed. I can go on a whole rant about this.
Cassian does say in this moment, though, that they wouldn't dishonor the blood right by tampering with it. Asriel's like, hold my beer, my guys.
But really, though, I am convinced that he had him killed. I don't care if it was against the rules. Asriel doesn't care if it was against the rules. Asriel doesn't like Illyria, which, again, we're going to be talking a lot about next book. And he might not even care if Cassian refuses to let him interfere. He definitely had Callan killed. So this problem would just go away. It's like, guys, this is just too easy of a solution. I'm just going to take care of it and let this be an accident.
I love Asriel. Oh my God. Now, Cassian does say, like, we can't dishonor the blood right by tampering with it. But next year, his mate will be taken into the blood right, and he literally has to be held back so that he does not tamper with it. However, the blood right next year will be tampered with nonetheless. There will be weapons, and Bellius will be under the crown's control. Good stuff. Then Cassian mentions how it would be a good sign of them moving in the right direction in Illyria when 20 girls are training over a month straight. Lines like this just hit so much harder after reading Silver Flames and what they do accomplish with the return of the Valkyries.
Yes, indeed.
It is time to sip some tea with the Suriel. Every episode, Lexi will sit down with our dear departed Suriel, walk us through a world-building topic, all to help us better understand the world and the people in it.
Today's Suriel topic is Winter Solstice.
Who's surprised?
Yeah. What is the Winter Solstice? Winter Solstice is on the longest night of the year, and it celebrates moving from one year to another as the sun dies and is born anew. In the Northern Hemisphere, which is where our story theoretically takes place, Winter Solstice is on December 21st. In our real world, this shortest day and longest night of the year occurs when either of Earth's poles reach its maximum tilt away from the sun. But back to ACOTAR. Winter Solstice is a holiday celebrated by most of the Prythian courts, with the main celebrations in winter, day, and night courts. It's standard that for the celebrations, people decorate with evergreen wreaths and garlands and exchange gifts at the very minimum. It's debated among the Fae if this holiday originated in the winter court or the day court. Both courts claim it as their holiest festivity. So, how is Winter Solstice celebrated in each court? I'm so glad you asked. It is no surprise that in the winter court, Winter Solstice is a week of festivities. The enthusiastic celebration includes dancing and drinking, feasting and gifting. They have roaring fires made from entire tree trunks and cauldrons full of mulled wine. There's singing of 1,000 minstrels flowing throughout their palace, answered by the bells ringing on the large sleighs pulled by those beautiful white bears. All in all, Winter Solstice really is a very big deal in the winter court, and I want to go there so badly. Like, I am just giddy right now talking about it. In the spring court, however, Winter Solstice consists of 3 days of feasting, drinking, and exchanging small presents. It's an enormous and crowded multi-day party where people and villagers from all over celebrate. At least when Ianthe was present, the celebration included 2 religious ceremonies on top of a hill. One ceremony at sunset to begin the endless night of presents, dancing, and drinking in honor of the old sun's death, and one the following dawn to welcome the sun's rebirth. Remember how this is one of 2 solstice ceremonies that the high priestess, aka Ianthe, stands with her arms upraised to be perfectly positioned as the sun rises, its rays filling the space with light and making her seem so goddess-like. We don't know anything about the winter solstice in the autumn court. I have a feeling Baron is not a very festive person, and he's especially not a family person, so anyway, unfortunately, we also don't know anything about how Winter Solstice is celebrated in the dawn or day courts. We can gather, though, that it is a big celebration in the day court because they claim it as their holiest holiday. Why not the summer solstice with the longest day of the year? I don't know. I was very confused why the Winter Solstice was the biggest deal for a day, but moving on. And then we just know that all of the solar courts celebrate the holiday. Winter solstice isn't celebrated in the summer court because they, of course, celebrate summer solstice instead. That's their really big grand celebration, which, of course, makes sense for the summer court. Also important to note that while there are no holidays celebrated in the human realm, winter solstice still is recognized. After the war and separation from the Fae 500 years ago, the humans wanted nothing to do with their previous slavers, so they refused to carry on the holiday traditions of the Fae, especially the religious aspect of it. But with winter solstice, homes are decorated with holly and evergreens, and the highest classes attend balls and parties. However, it's not a holiday per se, and definitely no presents. Which brings us to the Winter Solstice in the Night Court. Winter Solstice is largely celebrated in the Night Court because it falls during the longest night of the year. So that's really why it's a big celebration for them. In Illyria, Illyrians will travel to different war camps to spend time with family and friends, with extra visitors to the bigger areas like Windhaven. Like everywhere else, the holiday includes decorations, food, and celebration. In the Hewn City, they decorate for the holiday with black candles, evergreen wreaths, and holly berries. I think very like a gothic sort of Christmas vibe. Most importantly, they celebrate, like most others, for 3 days surrounding the longest night of the year. Each night hosts a different ball with lots of food and dancing, as we will find out personally next book. And then, of course, in Valaris, the holiday is described as intimate, warm, and lovely, with presents, music, and food, sometimes feasting under the starlight. People take a break from work, the streets are full of shopping, and it is quite the festive spirit. I can't help but imagine Valaris like the European Christmas markets, which for me, visiting Europe around Christmas time is definitely on my bucket list. I want to go so badly, maybe for my birthday, because my birthday is also in December. There are religious ceremonies for those who want to attend and honor the light's rebirth, usually by spending the entire night sitting in absolute darkness. In addition to the celebration of Valaris, solstice is a time to rest and reflect on the darkness and how it lets the light shine. How very fitting for the Night Court.
Now let us close out our last ACOTAR only part of this episode with our Fae-vorite Moments.
It feels so fitting that Amren's new hobby is puzzles. Now that she doesn't have the Book of Breathings to decode, she's done 5,000 piece puzzles in the past 3 days. I just love this so much. Somebody get her a harder puzzle. Where's the 10,000 pieces?
There's a puzzle piece that is entirely clear. So there's no like decoration or artistry to like work around. It is an entirely clear puzzle. I can't remember. I think it's only 1,000 pieces, but still, she would fuck up that puzzle real hard. I think that she needs that. That's what I would get Amren for Winter Solstice. Amren is also not snooping on Nesta. Finally, busybody Fae-vorite gets struck down and Amren shuts that shit down. I love it.
And how Amren sticks up for Nesta, saying that she likes her because she is not easy to be around or understand. Amren sees so much of herself in Nesta, and she will not betray Nesta's confidence by gossiping about her. After all, Nesta needs time to sort her shit out on her own. Maybe it's been months, but as Amren points out to human-minded Feyre, quote, she's an immortal. Months are inconsequential. Remember that Cassian will say it took him a decade to move on from what happened to his mother. And it took more decades, plural, to open her heart after her mortal queen's death.
Pivot, Rhys being horny as fuck, watching Feyre's ass, and then Amren saying, you're going to make me vomit, because she can smell him getting all hot and bothered, to which he apologizes to Varian. Which, speaking of, I love seeing how Rhys's prediction of Varian fitting in with them so well, it's coming true. I love Varian. I'm happy he's spending so much time in Valaris.
And then, of course, Cassian's still just like poking the bear. It's like, yep, that's my
Sounds
husband.
about right.
I am loving all of these descriptions of baked goods that Elaine, Nuala, and Caradwyn have been working all morning on. You know, we need an ACOTAR cookbook to recreate these goodies. Like, that's all I could think about.
I literally wrote the exact same thing in my notes, word for word, that you just said. Moving on, everything regarding the snowball fight. We need to take a moment for this. From Cassian and Asriel sneaking up on Rhys and taking him away, which Feyre basically not lifting an eyebrow at them stealing her maid away is iconic. She just continues eating her pastry, which is such a vibe. To them also having full-blown snow forts, where Asriel, super sneaky, pops up, launches 2 snowballs sky high, and then vanishes. And a moment later, Rhys calls out, asshole. This is like the snowball episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, and you cannot convince me otherwise. If you know, you know.
I also gotta love how Mor and Feyre winnow to the cabin and hang out inside and drink while the Bat Boys play in the snow outside. That would be you.
What, being inside drinking while you are outside playing snow?
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, exactly.
To a T.
And Asriel wins this year's snowball fight. It's his 199th victory. Huzzah! I wonder if you get a prize when you hit 200, or maybe just like extra bragging rights.
Well, okay, I do have a question. So we know that they've been doing this for over 500 years. Who do you think has the most amount of wins?
My heart wants to say Cassian. I could also see him not being very good at snowball fights. Like, he's like so good at commanding armies and fighting. And then like when he's just having fun, it's just like he doesn't.
I think Asriel is the best at snow. Like, I love Rhys so much. I don't think he would win the most amount of snowball fights. I think it's Asriel. I gotta say Asriel.
Partly because he probably just takes it so seriously.
Yes. But after the victory, they go inside and take a steam in the birchen, to which Rhys is like, hey, we're naked. Want to take a look? And Feyre's like, I thought mates were territorial. And Rhys says, quote, I'm always eager to learn what sparks your interest, Feyre darling. I am convinced SJM was reading some Why Choose Romance or whatever. And she wrote this book because this is not the first time this proposition has been given. No. This is the second time. Rhys also mentions in chapter 12, when Feyre goes into the bar to talk to Nesta, that if someone, comes up to her saying, I'll be free in an hour, like Rhys just wants to have a threesome or 3+some so badly.
Well, same thing happened in ACOWAR too, when Helion came into the picture. Yeah. And hey, good for him. No judgment by any means.
No.
Like, just also the way that Rhys gets kicked out of the birchen for being, quote, at attention when Feyre sends him an image, and Moore immediately realizes what Feyre did and roars with laughter. Like, this is the holiday novella fun that we are here for. This big, happy family just getting to have fun and tease each other. I love it.
I love how they threw him out in the snow, and I bet that went real fast. Elaine pounding down a shot when Nesta comes in. Like, this is so un-Elaine-like, and I'm so here for it. That the second Nesta walks in, she takes her over to the wine, and then Elaine pours herself a shot and knocks it back.
Well, not to be a Debbie Downer here, but it also just really further illustrates how difficult Nesta's presence is for those around her. Even Elaine can't deal with her without a little liquid courage.
Yeah, womp. That is that. And of course, we have to bring up the revelation that Rhys's mom made Feyre's dresses as a seamstress. I love that she really wanted her son to not just find a mate, but to find true, real love. Mama Rhys really thought of everything. I also love how Rhys is like, you really never figured it out? No, my guy, dead mother-in-law made all my dresses, wasn't on my bingo card.
He really emphasized that she made all of the dresses that he's given her. So I kind of wondered, did she also make her Court of Nightmares dresses, or even her Under the Mountain dresses? No, I don't think those ones.
I don't. No, I actually do think those ones, but I think it's because she knows that role. She knows that role so well that she knows his future mate / wife will have to play that role. She sent her to the fucking Weaver. I would not be surprised if she sent her to the Weaver, that she also made her dress with quotation marks around it.
I also want to point out that his mother was an artist at her craft who did this work because she loved it, even after she married the High Lord and was no longer a seamstress at the Illyrian war camp. Feyre gets to carry on her artistry and her memory by wearing these dresses. And my heart at imagining how meaningful this has been for Rhys to see his mate wearing the dresses that his mother made specifically for his mate. She had such high hopes for him and his future happiness, when Rhys didn't really feel like he deserved it. Even back then, his mother believed in him to find true happiness and love. I've also wondered how these dresses fit Feyre so perfectly when they were made centuries ago. I assume that there's some kind of magic to it that makes these dresses tailored to her body. I don't know. Those are the things I think about.
That's the only thing, because I had the same question. So that's the only thing that I could think about that made sense. Now, I am not a kindergarten teacher, but I feel like they're going to have similar stories to Feyre. She has one boy who blows a red paint bubble across the room where it collides with Racinia's face. This is the same boy who wanted a dog for Solstice, didn't get one, so he drew his own parents in a doghouse while him and his puppy live happily in the main house. This has to be a real story. If you are a teacher out there and you are listening, please tell me if this has happened. Please tell us. fantasyfangirlspod@gmail.com. I want to know.
As a parent, I can absolutely resonate with these stories. It just makes my heart so full.
I also love seeing Feyre and Rhys talk about her crazy kiddo stories. It's just I'm so excited for you guys to become parents. Wow.
Let's end this novella with sharing the final words on the page, because this is truly the final curtain call for Feyre and Rhys's POV journey. I'm just going to read the whole thing here. Quote, before I could elbow him, Rhys kissed me again, breathless and swift. To the stars who listen, Thera. I brushed a hand over his cheek to wipe away the last of his tears, his skin warm and soft, and we turned down the street that would lead us home, toward our future and all that waited within it, to the dreams that are answered, Reese. Their dreams have been answered. They're just so happy. The end.
All right, friends, we are about to begin our Maasverse Madness. Lexi, I have been foaming at the mouth to talk about these today. I'm so excited.
Today's Maasverse Madness includes spoilers for Crown of Midnight from Throne of Glass series and House of Flame and Shadow from Crescent City. So if you have not read at least the first 2 Throne of Glass books and all 3 Crescent City books, this is where we part ways. But before you go, reminder that next episode we are starting A Court of Silver Flames, the prologue through chapter 4.
Biggest thank you to our newest members of the Inner Circle, Naomi and Christy. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yay, Naomi and Christy. And if you also want to join the Patreon party, be sure to check out the link in the show notes. We are really fun, we promise.
We also have a Fantasy Fangirls newsletter. We email you a whole slew of resources, from a small bookish store to books that we're currently reading and loving to books that the community has written and so much more.
And if you're not following us on Instagram and TikTok, what are you doing? Give us a follow at Fantasy Fangirls Pod.
And of course, as always, please do not forget to rate and review the podcast. It is 2 seconds of your life, and it is one of the best things that you can do, not only for this podcast, but for any podcasts you listen to.
Okay, friends, we are now officially starting our Maasverse Madness segment of the episode, where we call out series crossover references and discuss theories. Today, like we mentioned, we are discussing concepts that give spoilers from Crown of Midnight from the Throne of Glass series, as well as House of Flame and Shadow from the Crescent City series. So please only continue listening if you've read these books.
We need to continue this more conversation because her POV chapter gives us some big Maasverse questions. Question number 1. What is this patch of darkness? Well, Reddit has some answers. Competitive_bus 4057 wonders if this is a word gate. And I'll put the link to the Reddit article in the show notes because honestly, it's awesome. We learned from Baba Yellowlegs in Crown of Midnight that, quote, there are gates, black areas in the word that allow for life to pass between worlds. Could this be what the shadowy darkness is? And more just almost accidentally missed out on an opportunity to travel to Aurelia, Midgard, or somewhere else entirely. But then, as competitive_bus 4057 brings up, this also could mean that Bryaxis is watching her, and maybe Bryaxis itself is a word gate. But the theory continues, and this is where I just get chills. I love it. Because some of the commenters noted in this Reddit article, this patch of darkness is also super similar to that shadowy darkness that watches Hunt in the Asteri dungeons in House of Flame and Shadow. And we know that to have been Adis, one of the princes of hell. So the princes of hell can travel through this shadowy patch of darkness. Could this be, rather than Adis, could this be Thanatos watching more? Thanatos has been mentioned in the ACOTAR series before. This would absolutely check out as a way for the Princess of Hell to enter our ACOTAR world. This crossing of worlds is especially sus when you look at the line at the end of the chapter, where Moore mentions mists being around. Mists, aka ley lines intersecting, creating thin places within the world easily able to travel to. Oh my God! This was amazing. I loved it. Question number 2. Is Elia an Asterian horse? Moore mentions how super rare and coveted the breed is, and honestly, that's all I have to go on, so it's fun to think about. And question number 3, and I realize this actually does have a little, like the most minor spoiler from Empire of Storms, so keep that in mind as you go into it. This is a small passage from Empire of Storms in the Throne of Glass series. All of the wind talk from Moore. Moore is riding as fast as the west wind and her blood calling her to go on the wind. Who else is quite connected to winds? The Witches of Throne of Glass, who specifically is connected to western winds? Manon in Empire of Storms. She thinks, quote, the song of the western wind singing her home. Moore is a witch. Mic drop. I got it.
All right, friends, that's all we got here for Frost and Starlight. Like we said, next week we are diving straight into Silver Flames with the prologue through chapter 4.
Thank you, as always, to our executive producer, Hayden, aka our sanity manager. Little backstory. This week is the first week since we started Fantasy Fangirls where we had a triple episode week. We filmed both episodes of Frost and Starlight this week, and we also had a bonus episode for Onyx Storm. Hayden, we love you. We thank you. Everyone give Hayden a big hug because he's been working a lot on editing this week. Thank you, Hayden. And of course, friends, please share this episode with your fellow ACOTAR friends. Honestly, it's the holiday episode. So if your friends also love the holiday season and they love ACOTAR, this is the perfect episode for them.
Thank you so much, everybody. We will see you in Silver Flames. Bye-bye.
But apparently, it's nothing compared to Ricinia, who is coded from Bubble Boy.
From laughing when Reese offers to model a reg negligee. I can't ever go to France or they will like literally run me out of the town. Run me out of the country.
Brimming with his dark, glorious essence and undimming love.
My pussy and my crack.